Let me do
Oh.
that. We have another phone in the office. I don't want it to start going off. There we go. Okay.
All right. So welcome everyone to a special event with Dia Hoover, the author of STL Scavenger. And we are very happy to have her here tonight to talk all about some really cool places around St. Louis. I'm Lindsay with University City Public Library. And I just wanted to cover a few housekeeping points before we get started. If you could keep your mics off during this presentation, unless you want to jump in and ask a question. You can type it into the chat, but Dia would be certainly happy if she could answer any of your questions while she's giving her presentation. Otherwise, I will, if I hear any background noise, I probably will mute you just so we can keep everything as clear as possible. And then, yes, like I said, you can enter your questions into the chat, or if you're on Facebook, you can enter your questions on in the comments. And I think that is about it. So we are so lucky to have Dia Hoover here, former University City resident, tour guide, and travel everything extraordinaire. Dia, please welcome. It's so nice to have you.
Thank you. Yay, thanks for having me. Well, I lived in University City for 12.5 years. My neighbor Evelyn got me onto the Historical Society board. So I participated in helping getting the Century Home plaques done. And I was around for a lot of stuff for a while. So I live on the hill now, but U City is still in my heart because that's where I moved after I graduated from Washington University. So I grew up in Vandalia, Missouri. So that was like a huge move to come to St. Louis. For a country girl, you know, moving in. So pretty excited about that. And I love St. Louis and I love sharing it. And that's why I love my job. So I'll tell you a little bit about what I do and who I am. So we're going to share this. Let me hit it play from the start. All right. So I own Are We There Yet Tours. So if you've ever seen this little pink logo anywhere, that is me. I also own Discover St. Louis Tours, which I bought in 2008. I always say during a momentary lapse of reason. Kelly called me and wanted to sell it to me and I bought it. So I am Women Business Enterprise certified. I'm very proud of that. And 2 women owned Discover St. Louis before I did. So Bernice Barnaby and Kelly Mazzacavallo. So when it started in 75, it was owned by a woman and then passed on and on. And I started Are We There Yet from scratch. I'd been a tour director and I wanted to make sure that I got to have fun. And having fun is being on the motor coach and being on the tours and the cruises and being with people. So I started it and I escort all my tours. And now my husband Declan comes in and he escorts tours with me as well as, and Maggie, my office manager. So that's kind of who I am. I started being an over-the-road tour director in 2000. So before that, I worked at Famous Bar, for anybody that remembers Famous Bar. And during my senior year, I was an intern at Venture. So Venture's closed, Famous Bar's closed. Then I sold cars at Saturn. Saturn's gone. So I just had to start my own businesses because otherwise, you know, I'm just going to keep shutting others down. So I love traveling and I was spending my, 50 weeks working, planning my 2 weeks time off traveling. So I thought, well, something's got to give. And I had the opportunity to become a tour director and I kind of fell into it because the woman owned a Saturn and she was getting her car worked on. And I made the comment to her, hey, are you all hiring? And she said, actually, Sherry just eloped. So we have an opening. And that's how I became a tour director, which I started in 2000, which was not great because in 18 months, 9/11 happened and we were all let go and starting over. I started a business up with a friend that had worked with me at the company. And then I thought I want to do my own thing. And so that's where I came up with Are We There Yet? So I'm going to go back a little bit. So look at my virtual background. Okay. Now look at the logo. Do you notice how Are We There Yet is like an arch over my head? That's the madness behind the logo, because my idea was like having the arch come out of my hand and going over my head. And I was going to name the company STL Tour Girl. And then I thought, my friend helped me come up with Are We There Yet, which has been accidentally awesome because it starts with an A. So I'm at the top of every single directory and the yellow pages and all that. So that that was an accidental quirk that worked out great. So then I started a company in 2002. Then I created Are We There Yet in 2005. Then, like I told you, I purchased Discover St. Louis. So now the St. Louis Convention and Visitors Commission has really done me a solid because they've changed their name to Explore St. Louis. So they have so many people that think they're calling them that call us. So I'm calling that a win. And then they even have a page called Discover St. Louis in the CVB. So that's pretty cool. And then I started teaching at Merrimack as an adjunct faculty, doing tours, and then also doing classes. Also doing classes. So what was kind of cool about it was that I was able to share life experiences, quit touching the mouse. I was able to share life experiences with people about travel. I was also able to take them on day trips. And then also this past year, because we've all been, the word is pivot, but I've just been kind of fleshing out what I do. I taught a class on how to advocate for someone you love. I've taught a class on how to prepare for retirement, those sorts of things that I have experience in that I like to share with people. And sometimes it's good to hear it from someone who's been in the situation. Like my husband had 2 brain surgeries in the course of 13 months, and he just turned 40 last week. Or 2 weeks ago. So it's like, I went through a lot that I learned the hard way, and I wanted to share that with others. So I teach travel and tourism, but I also teach some one-offs about different subjects. I am a licensed travel insurance agent. I say that because you do have to get licensed in the state of Missouri to offer tour and travel insurance on any kind of tours. And then now, besides being a tour director and a tour operator and a travel agent, I'm an author. So that's a new one, a new PowerPoint there. So, a book. I thought you were a tour guide. So this was kind of interesting. I was showing Lindsay earlier the book, The Hill by Lynn Marie Alexander, and I live on the Hill, and I was helping with that, and I wrote an epilogue in it. And so things kind of started, falling into place. So who? Reedy Press, that's who I've been working with. And what happened was Josh, who owns Reedy Press, he's an entrepreneur also. And he said to me, he's like, how are you doing? I said, terrible. We've had no business. We've had to refund all our money. He's like, well, you helped us make the tour up for the Forest Park walking tour book that Carolyn Kelly wrote, which is a great pandemic book also, because it has 7 walks of Forest Park. I helped her do some tours. We sold them on Discover St. Louis. He said, well, if you want to write any of these walking tour books, let me know. So I pondered it. I'm like, I'll do Hannibal and I'll do Herman. And he was kind of surprised. I said, well, first of all, Hannibal is worldwide. Mark Twain, people love Mark Twain. I was actually born there, which is kind of fun when I immigrate back in the country or immigrate out, because it says, where were you born? City and state. And I could put Hannibal Mo because Vandalia was too small to have a hospital. So that's kind of fun for me. And then Herman is such a great location, and they haven't had a walking tour book. Well, then August comes along. We're down in Texas and Houston, where my husband had surgery. And I get a phone call saying, hey, we have an idea for a book for the pandemic. And I thought, oh my gosh, I hope it's not like Love in the Time of Cholera or something. So they said, well, scavenger hunts are really hot. So puzzles and scavenger hunts, because all my tour operator friends and I have been talking about this. My friend in Ontario, in Kitchener, Ontario, she and her daughter put together a scavenger hunt, and you met on the parking lot, and they gave you the list of things to find. You snap a picture, and when you finished, part of it was you got a puzzle. So they had made a puzzle out of all the road signs and city limit signs and everything that the people saw when they were on the scavenger hunt, and made it into a puzzle. And there's actually a puzzle company that she had make it. So puzzles and scavenger hunts are trending. That's what we used to say in retail. They're on trend. So the folks at Reedy figured that out, and they talked to a woman who helps them out with some of their public relations. And she's like, she's known me since I started. And she's like, just call Dia. She's a tour guide. So she called. So I get the phone call, and I'm like, a book. Oh, sure. That's just like a tour on paper. I'll do it. That sounds fabulous. We could turn that around really quick. And then as the time went on, it was hard. It was really hard, but I'll tell you more about that. So why? Because of the pandemic. Why? Because I have time. That was the blessing of the pandemic for me, because we needed time for my husband to heal. I needed time to be off the road because we had been on what I call the merry-go-round. Because after you've lived through 9/11, after you lived through the crash of 2008, which happened to me 9 months after I bought Discover St. Louis. So I had a note to pay for on Discover St. Louis, or a loan. I had a mortgage on this building because I had to buy a 2-family flat. And then the crash happened 9 months later. So I had lived through that, and I could just hear my dad. He passed away at 18, but things have been going so well, and our business just kept ramping up. And I kept hearing him say, "We're about due. Better keep going. We're about due, because when it falls off, you're done." And I did, and then it fell off. So we had our best year ever in 2019 with Are We There Yet? We had our best year for Discover St. Louis in 2018, and then it all stopped. So things work out if you go with the flow. And as I have aged, I have learned to go with the flow. I have learned, quit fighting it, because you're just going to be upset and nothing's really going to work out. So why did I become a book author? Because I was given this lovely opportunity. I was an English literature minor at Washington University. I used to tutor the other business students in English comp because I was a B school or business school major. And even in 1989, 35% of students were women. So it was still heavily skewed to men in the business school. But I loved English, but I wanted to get a job, right? Because you needed to have a degree to get a job. So this fulfilled my wish to either get my master's degree in creative writing or, move forward with that. So I'm like, another thing I can check off. And the other thing is I keep giving tours even when I'm not here, right? So like I can be, when we go to the Douro River in Portugal, people can get this book and they can be on a tour, even if I'm not here. What a great idea, right? I was working on a virtual tour app, but the thing about a virtual tour app is I'm going to be giving all this information. So Ricardo had recorded me and we're putting it together. So when people call the office and my office manager says she's out of the country, we usually don't let our other guides do private tours because it's just kind of security issue unless it's a walking tour. So if I'm not here, they can't do it. So I thought, well, we'd have the virtual tour. So that's kind of how that app's going to work. But it's just going to be me giving information. With this book, I get to ask questions. And that's what I do when I'm giving a tour. I ask questions so that you're like, So that's kind of what that is about. Now, the exciting news, and I'm blowing my own horn, but I'm going to do it anyway, because I didn't even know there was an indie bestseller list in St. Louis. So all of the bookstores in St. Louis submit their numbers. So the Novel Neighbor and Left Bank Books and University City's own Subterranean Books and Main Street Books in St. Charles, they load up all of their sales. And so 2 weeks ago, Carolyn Kelly, that I was telling you about, Carolyn Mueller, that wrote the Forest Park Walking Tour book, who's a zookeeper by day. That's what's so cool about her. She's a zookeeper by day and an author and mother by night. And she sent me this email and she says, oh, I saw your name in the paper on the bestseller list. I thought, what? So I called Charlie Old Danny, my neighbor, because he gets the post. So he brings it over and he gets the paper post, and puts it through the door for me. So then I was number 2 last week too. So that's kind of exciting because there was Elizabeth Warren with Persist is like number 5. So I was in the same list. So that was really exciting. And that's been exciting for me. And I hope my dad's seeing it. That's, everybody says he's watching, and Mom's still running the Firestone store up in Vandalia, Missouri. So the books are for sale at the Firestone store. So this is what the cover looks like. So what was interesting about designing the book, I wanted it to have a spiral binding. And Reedy doesn't really do that because their publisher doesn't do that, or no, their printer. So what that means is, and I understand this from doing our catalog, when you print something and they don't do that binding, then you've got to move it all to another location and hope that everybody does their job and then binds it. But I said, look, I see people opening up folders or a AAA travel guide when they're on tour with me, and you're like bending and you're pushing that binding back. You're trying to take notes. I'm like, if you do this, then you can just totally, fold it back. You can fold it back and go side to side. And, there's even lines here so you can write in it. So that was really important to me just from my experience. So here's a sample picture. And this is University City going over into the campus. And this is like the second generation. So what happened to 9 sections of the book? There are 17 sections with 17 neighborhoods and cities. And I say cities because like in the city of St. Louis, you've got the Hill, you've got Southampton, you've got Old North, but then you've got the county, right? So then you've got Webster Groves and you've got Kirkwood and Ferguson and Florissant. Then you've got St. Charles And then, Belleville, Edwardsville. So that's why I say neighborhoods and cities. So we started out with 15. We were doing 20 clues for each one. It has wound up with 17 and at least 20. So there's a total of 366 clues in the book. It's 192 pages long. And God bless my mother-in-law, when I sent her the book to proof, because she is a retired principal of elementary children and a reading teacher, she plowed through it in 3.5 hours. I checked my email and I looked at Declan. I'm like, your mom just read through this book. She did the whole thing. So she was great. So 9 sections of 20, 180 clues, I wrote 3 times because we were trying to get it right. We're trying to make it work because I was writing it straight, which is kind of what we've got here. So you have a detail, which is a picture blown up. I didn't know what a detail was till I did this book because I wasn't an art history major or a photographer. So you have this picture. And then this is one of the original ones that I worked on that we realized this isn't great. Named in Ibby's honor, one of the most beloved first ladies of the campus is a place for monarchs to gather. Look on the south side of the street with the same name as the actor whose voice was Charlie, the man giving the angels their next assignment. So I think that Cheryl and Suzanne, you probably know who was the voice of Charlie in Charlie's Angels. John Forsythe. He was the one that, because I was a huge Charlie's Angels fan. I love that show. So that was because it's Forsyth Boulevard through WashU, right? So I'm trying to pull things together to like give a hint. And then Ibby was Chancellor Danforth's wife. And so you kind of had to know that or look that up, but it's the Elizabeth Danforth Butterfly Garden. So I was trying to kind of find my way. So this is one of the first samples, that I was sharing with people of what we did. So here's another one. And again, this is the university campus. And the reason I'm showing you like this one, I wasn't able to use it. And I'll tell you why in a minute. So hippity hoppity, go, go, go. No, wait, maybe it is hoppity hippity. What is this hunk of stone I'm straddling? I think I will ponder like my mates living with the Dutch and in DC and Des Moines. Am I late for philosophy or art history? Maybe I'll just go back into the duck. So if you've been on WashU's campus, this is the thinker. Let me see if I put the name of the thinker on a rock. So what I was trying to pull out of this is A, you're looking for a rabbit somewhere. B, you're on a campus. So if you're in the U City section, which the book will tell you what section you're in, it will say down at the bottom, okay, I am in Ferguson or Florissant. I'll show you some of those later, but it will tell you, so you'll know you're looking in U City. So then I put in the Dutch and in DC and Des Moines because this artist has made these whimsical rabbits other places. So that was kind of a hint. And then the duck is the Danforth University Center. So my hope was if you could Google some of this, that would pop up for you to understand what the clues were, right? To help you. So that's what I was trying to do. And the other thing I struggled with, obviously reading this, is that I was writing like iambic pentameter when I did the second generation of rhyming. And then I got it down to 4-line riddles. So it was hard because I'm a tour guide and I want to give you all this information. So here's another one. Look near a bibliophile's favorite haunt on campus. Often you will see one on individual compasses atop a church with a rooster, but here you see 49. This grouping gathers the same information and electronically reports on the wind speed. So Lindsay, bibliophile's favorite haunt, what is that? That's the library.
Definitely
so this
the
is
library,
on the campus.
yeah.
So yeah, the library. And then a church, compass is atop a church with a rooster. So this is Weatherfield number 2. And this is another piece of art that's on WashU's campus. And what's so cool, so this is what I learned that I love. So on all of this stuff, I learned so much. Every single one of these is actually amassing information. It's an art installation, but it's actually recording the wind speed. Isn't that crazy? I mean, I just think that's such an interesting thing. So this one, and then with the thinker on the rock, the problem was their art. So then you've got to kind of get to, I'm going to stop sharing here. So when you have public art, what you've got to do, you got to find the owner, you've got to find the artist, and then you've got to get permission. So I didn't realize that. I thought if something was outside, it was in the public domain, which is absolutely positively untrue. So I contacted Gateway Arts Foundation because if you've driven through Clayton, you know there's a man on horse. Well, that is by a very, very famous artist named Botero. So Gateway Arts Foundation did not have a contact. They had been given it to place. So I was trying to get a hold of Botero's agent. I went so far as to call an art gallery in Boca Raton because I called the art museum, the St. Louis Art Museum. He said, I don't have any Boteros. I don't have anybody that I know of. And then you go to the artist rights nyc.com and try to find if there's someone that does the rights. Well, he wasn't registered there. So I had to take that out. Another one that was interesting is if you've ever seen the scary guy on the horse over at the Clayton Firehouse, you know, the horse has got its neck all up and he's bald. And well, that is the Swedish mythological scary god named Folk Fillbiter. So I found that St. Louis Art Museum, they had placed that, right? So I called Jason and we chat and he's like, okay, so that's when I found out about the artist rights nyc.com. So he's like, email them and then I will, you know, go do my thing. And the problem was if they give you permission, 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, you got to give an acknowledgement. Well, we were running to print this book to run as a contest. So I didn't have the answers in it. And I didn't want the answers to be released until the contest was finished. And what happened was I couldn't put an acknowledgement in. So that was such a struggle, you know, like I wanted to put the fish on the bicycle, you know, and what I learned when I was, if you have not seen the fish on the bicycle, it's over in E.G. Lewis Park. And what I learned then was Gloria Steinem said it, but she did not coin that quote. So these are all the little things I learned. I'm like, oh, because I just finished watching Mrs. America on Hulu with about Phyllis Schlafly, and then it had Gloria Steinem and the characters in it. So those are things I really learned as I went along that were stumbling blocks. And I have 2 friends that are art appraisers, and Dana Gray and Julie Nicolai were both like, okay, if you can't get a hold of them, just replace it. Because my fear was their third cousin comes into town and says, oh, I picked up this book and your piece of art's in it. And then they're like, why are you using our piece of art? What's going on? So that was something that I did that was really surprising to learn. Like I knew inside of a museum, I knew that on the internet, you have to be very careful with what you use because it's copyrighted, but it never dawned on me about that at all. So that, that was kind of interesting to me to learn that you had to go down that road. The other thing that I learned that I thought was so interesting was Florissant in 1971 registered all of their blocks and their streets and many buildings on the National Register of Historic Places. And Florissant is one of the oldest areas in all of St. Louis because, of course, you had you have the shrine of St. Ferdinand, but you had the Catholic nuns there. That's where St. Philippina Duchesne was. Because when she went to St. Charles one winter, it was so cold and awful. The sisters all had to come back over to Florissant. So that is a very, very old neighborhood. And they had the foresight, 50 years ago to say, we need to get these streets and these buildings saved. And I just thought that was really, really impressive. Another thing I learned, Edwardsville, Illinois, the guy who really pretty much put the town on the map, he was the one who signed off on all the land grants. So he got that power from Washington, D.C., and we're talking in the late 1700s, early 1800s, talk about a powerful man and a powerful town. Everybody had to come to him to get their land. So it was really just like a deep dive into a lot of stuff. And that's why it took me so long. Because I'd be working on a section and I would start going in and then I would just go down the rabbit hole, as we call it on the internet. And I thought, this book and the ability to do it would be so hampered before 2008. 2008 is when the iPhone came out. So that's when you had the internet in your hand. That's when you had a map in your hand. That's when everything really changed. Otherwise, I would have had to go to the libraries to research all this or do Nexus Lexis. I mean, we had Nexus Lexis at WashU's libraries when I was there as a student, but it was a lot, and it wasn't always easy to pull documents. So, that really has made a difference with doing a book like this for sure. And it also made me choose what was the most important thing. So what I'm going to do, since I'm going to give you all the actual clue that wound up being in here. I should have had this marked. I did not. So if you can think of any questions you want to ask me, feel free to do that. In University City, just so you know, it's at the very front of the book. It's the first one. So that's kind of exciting. All right, so here's the clue, and it's a different picture. What a wonderful campus park, even more if you're a monarch. Tiny visitors make your heart flutter south of Forsyth through a field of color. So see how much better that was than the first one I started out with all those extra words and all those extra clues. So that's kind of what we did. And the other cool thing, I'm gonna take off virtual background so you can see better. So this is my office. This is where the magic happens. So notice that there's a photo, there's a clue, there's the character, and then there's the clue. So you really have three ways to kind of understand the clue, and to sort of flesh it out. So that's what I thought really turned out great with the book. So you've got the book, kind of tells you what the book's about, and then it's just full of the clues with pictures and, you know, the limericks and the rhymes. But you really have three to solve each one, which I think is nice, because then you got more angles to come at it. So my high school science teacher is the librarian up in Farmer, Missouri, and Brenda called and she messaged me and she said, hey, can you do your book even if you're not in St. Louis? And I said, yes, you can. And what's interesting is when I was researching about the virtual app, I was telling you we were making one for the tour. What was very interesting to me about that in the research that Ricardo came back with is that 60% of people taking a museum's virtual tour or a town's virtual tour are at home on their couch. I never would have thought of that at all. That is just so surprising to me. So this book, you know, you can really do it even if you don't get to every single neighborhood, and using the internet and, you know, using the context clues of the detail and then the caricature and then the rhyming. And I'll give you the cities. I tried to make it a very, very wide swath because I love different things about each of the cities and towns that we have. And I have, you know, like 5 things of each one that I do when I do a tour, which is kind of fun. So we did University City, Central West End, Ferguson, Alton, Webster Groves, The Hill, downtown, Florissant, Tower Grove South, Southampton, Soulard, Belleville, Clayton, Edwardsville, St. Charles, Old North St. Louis, and Kirkwood. Of course, you know, I leaned heavy on University City and The Hill and downtown. And so that's where some of the extra clues are when they came to me and said, we are moving the lines from the back of the book to underneath each clue. You got 24 more clues in you. I almost fell out. I did. I almost went out right down the chair. And so I went back in. I'm like, oh, well, we can just do them all downtown. And Barb's like, no, let's spread them out. So I spread them more out. And I think you all will really like it. It's a fun book, and it's fun gift. And I think it's fun for someone who's moved to the neighborhood, like a new neighbor. I think it's for someone who just bought a house or got a job. And this kind of, you know, this is I'll show you this too. Oh, there's my husband, Declan. He was my chief rhyme helper. He did such a good job because I get stuck and he started helping me with the rhymes. So you can see kind of geographically where it is. And then over here for Illinois, you've got Alton, Edwardsville, Belleville. And I still call it Bell Vegas. That's like a joke with people who grew up in Belleville, because it's like this little town next to this big city of St. Louis. So they're cool. They're little Las Vegas. So that's kind of fun. One of the guys I went to university with at WashU, his brother was the one who started the Bell Vegas bumper stickers and t-shirts and hats. So if you go over to Beatniks over in Belleville, you can, you know, that's where they can still make them for you. So I get a kick out of that because I work with a woman at Saturn she was in Belleville, and she always called it Bell Vegas. So that was kind of fun. Another thing that I love was the logo. So, you know, doing something with a publishing company versus doing it yourself is so much easier because I'm used to being, you know, it's myself, my husband, Declan, and Maggie, my tour coordinator, and we have to do everything and make all the decisions. So having a creative team was such a boon, you know, to me. So like, if you look here, you can see it's a fleur-de-lis and it's binoculars. So when you see that everywhere, that shows you that they're selling the book or they've got a clue. And then there's a QR code, which I don't know. QR codes kind of went in fashion and out of fashion. And so it's annoying. And so they came back at restaurants, I understand. So that's kind of cool. So like when you get this, there's a sticker here that has the QR code. So you scan that and then you can go, that takes you to the website where there is a big contest where you can win up to $500 if you submit all 366 clues. And then the other thing we have is going to go to Subterranean, you can ask them for a puzzle card. And there are 9 puzzle cards. And that came from my friend in Canada. So then once you put the puzzle together, then there's a clue. And then you can submit that answer to stlscavenger.com as well. So they did a really good job with the games. I had input and I really appreciate all the creative that has happened. And I've had people message me like, I've seen it in Schnucks, I've seen it in Subterranean. My youth minister sent me the picture of the chalkboard. Kelly puts up the top book she sold. So 3 weeks ago, she had ours at #1. So that was fun because Tim Ezzell was in. Did you all see the Tim Ezzell Fox 2 when he was in the Del Mar Loop with me? That was April 29th. So you can see that. And Kelly came in and opened up Subterranean books and it was fantastic. You know, it was early in the morning because we started at 5:20. I felt like I was on a tour catching that plane, you know, at dark 30. Nobody else is at the airport. You're going to get there at 4. You're coming in with the TSA people and the vendors. So he and I started at 5:20 and we had a great time. I said, there's no one else I'd rather be with at 5:30 in the morning than Tim Ezzell because he's Personality Plus and we had a great time. And his filmer was great. So Kelly came in like at 7:30, which is really early for a bookseller, and opened up the shop and let us in. So I love Subterranean books. I was so happy. I don't know if you realize, but she's moved over next to where Plowshare and Crafts is. So now she's got a super, super deep building, which is fantastic. So I think that's all I have. There's only, you know, so much to say without giving away the clues, but I will tell you the clues will be released December 1st. So the contest, you upload your answers to stlscavenger.com by November 15th. Then we'll get all the right answers, throw those people's names in a hat, draw it out for the $500 and then 2 swag bags. And then also with Find the 9, when they complete the puzzle pieces and figure out the answer to that clue, they upload that answer. And there's a little girl named Presley that's on Instagram. She has gotten all 9 cards. So she takes a picture of herself, puts it on Instagram, and posts it, and she's like, "Thank you for liking my post." I thought that was really nice. So she's gone and gotten the puzzle card. So that's like Main Street in St. Charles. That's Ben's in Belleville. She's her mother or father or brother or sister has taken her all over. Her aunt, I don't know. So that's been really fun. So it's a game book, and I will tell you the good thing about it is you don't have to feel guilt about not reading it from front to back because it's a game. Right? Like you buy a book. When I was trying to figure out how to write my acknowledgments and my dedication, because I'd never done that either. I mean, I had never done anything. They're like, oh, you need to do an introduction and an acknowledgement, a dedication. And so I like go along the shelf. So over here on the office side, I inherited all the books that Kelly had purchased. And then I, of course, purchased books. Like, you know, when I was on the U City Historical Society, we had, you know, we would have people selling books that would speak and I would buy the book. I called Josh, who owns Reading. I'm like, I am a huge customer. I have 9 books that are all from Reedy Press. So that was kind of funny. And then the other thing I learned working with Reedy is that is the name of one of the most famous newspapers or periodicals in the country called Mirror. And that was at Reedy Press. So that's why they adopted Reedy Press. It was Reedy's Mirror. I think it was Mirror Magazine. So that's why it's Reedy, because I always wondered about that. Because Josh's last name is Stevens. So it's not like it's his last name, but that's a throwback to the Mirror, which when I was searching something else for the book, this whole history popped up. So I thought that was kind of neat.
Well, do any of our attendees have any questions? I have a couple questions, but I would like to give other people the ground first.
I have a question. It sounds like a fun game, but you also said you were creating an app for a virtual tour. Is that in progress?
Yes. So Ricardo and I started recording right when the pandemic started happened. And so he's got all kinds of raw footage. So that's my next project as we get going. So that'll be Discover St. Louis. That's my other company. But if you contact Are We There Yet? It's the same office. I just kept the different company names because Discover's been around since 75. So yeah, that'll be out hopefully the next 6 months.
What is it exactly?
So it's an app that you can download on your phone or your iPad, and you can do it on the computer. And then at you'll be able to watch like a free section, and then you can pay for it. And I'll do different tours of different areas. So
Does it have a map and you walk with it?
You can walk with it. And then what we waited for, because he had started doing this 2 years ago, but we either had video or we had audio. So now when you get to somewhere, you can hit play and my audio will be me explaining where you're at.
It's funny because I'm actually in the process of writing a tour app myself.
Are you?
Yes, and I'm looking for a partner because I have a tour app, and it's an app where you use it on your phone and it shows you a map, and you can walk from place to place on the map and then listen to an audio explanation.
Well, and that's,
I don't know if we're going to be in competition.
well, let's not. Let's be cooperative. I much prefer cooperation than competition.
So I'm more in the app business rather than in the tour business. That's why I've been looking for partners. So
well, and if you're doing audio, that's different than what I'm doing. And I would be happy to work with you on the audio, you know,
oh,
if that's helpful for you, so that like I'm saying it like I would say it on a tour, because yeah, I'm a cooperator. That's why I try to.
Could I talk to you sometime? Would that be all right?
Yes, yes. And let me put my email in here, and you can just email me. I'm going to give you the main one because Maggie will pick it up if I miss it. I've got so many emails right now, my head's spinning. So it's just dia@arewethereYet.dia.com.
Okay, because I looked at the beginning of the pandemic, I looked for walking tours that you could take yourself in St. Louis, and I really couldn't find any.
Well, there's not. And the problem we have as St. Louis is that we have the second most free attractions after Washington, D.C., and people very seldom pay for anything. So we're not Chicago, we're not San Francisco, we're not New York. And like I said, I was doing the virtual app, and it's an idea to substitute when I'm not in town. And are you targeting out of town people or in town people, do you think? Actually,
it's an app that can be used anywhere because it doesn't really have content. It's just it's the bones of it where it's the way it's an app. So it's a builder. So you can build a tour. It's a builder.
Well, that's exciting. All right. Well,
anybody can build a tour.
Okay. Well, let's talk.
Well, let's talk. Thanks.
And there's the Zoom kitty.
There's the Zoom cat.
My husband's allergic to cats, so I love the Zoom cats and the dog cats. And, I mean the dogs, not the dog cats, the Zoom cats and the Zoom dogs. If there is a Zoom dog cat, let me know.
I am curious, Dia, and also for our participants, what is there one place in St. Louis that if you have someone who comes in from out of town who's never been to St. Louis, where is the first place you take them?
You got to take them to see the Arch. I mean, it's the tallest national monument, and I know we think it's no big deal, but it's a huge deal. And think of how many miles we all drive to go to Mount Rushmore or to go elsewhere. So I always bring them to the Arch, and now, so I'm sitting in front of the new visitor center. So the beauty of this is that you can walk in and you can see one of the cars that you ride in, and as a tour guide, you can use the restroom. So I can drop off my people to use the restroom without going through security now, which is amazing. Because when people arrive, what a great place for me to meet them, right? If I either meet them at the Forest Park Visitor Center, which has fabulous restrooms, or I meet them at the brewery, which has been closed this whole time, or I meet them at the Arch now. So I take them to the Arch. And then the other place I take them that is really impressive to people is Forest Park. I mean, it is a jewel of St. Louis, and it's 450 acres larger than Central Park. And the reason I know that is I was doing a proposal for somebody and I was Googling it. So it's larger, it's a carriage riding park, but with all the free attractions in it and the fact that they're also world class, that's a big deal. That's kind of a big deal. And, you know, Marlon Perkins was our zoo director, but you can't say that to anybody under 45 because they don't remember Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. But yeah, so those were those two things. And then Soulard, you know, Soulard Market is amazing. It's the oldest market west of Mississippi that never stopped working because of Madame Soulard, because she died last, because she told her husband, Antoine, that she wanted to leave it to the city. And he's like, no, our kids can sell it and make money. And so he died first. So she made the will that if she would give it to the city, and then if they sold it off, they had to find every one of her heirs and give them their fair share. Ladies, super smart. So Soulard is, and the market is still amazing, right? I mean, I take students there to give them an economics lesson. And it's really exciting when you got the barkers, you know, like some of those stands, they'll holler at you, you know, we got tomatoes, we're, you know, so much a pound. And so that's exciting. And then Lafayette Square, largest collection of Victorian homes west of Mississippi. That's a big deal. So, and Swans, I'll tell you, one of my best private tour stories, I had this couple in from Hawaii, and their daughter's friend, who was like their other daughter, was playing in a volleyball tournament. So they called up to get a tour over Thanksgiving weekend. And I just go up to Vandalia for one day and come home. So we go to Lafayette Park in Lafayette Square, and I'm walking around, and we go over to where the Swan House is on the pond. And all 5 of them just rolled out. It's like, cue the swans, cue the swans. And that was just like, and so I have it on video. So if you go to the Discover St. Louis Facebook page, you can see the swans. But you know, and Lafayette Square is something a lot of people don't realize is there. And it comes right off of Soulard, but you got to cross the highway. You know, we have the most interstates of any city too. You got 44, 55, 64, 70, 170, 270, 255. So that made a difference in dividing up the neighborhoods, just like here on the hill when they ran 44 through.
Cheryl or Suzanne, do you have any place that you like to take visitors, first-time visitors to St. Louis?
I don't really know that much about it. That's what, like I said, I tried to find walking tours because I really like to do walking tours. Mm-hmm. And I thought there was just a need for something, and I wanted to build something that other people could use to create tours when they know the area and I don't, and they can build their own tour. So
and we started doing walking tours during the pandemic. I'd never done that before. And we were using the whisper ears, but we'd only get like 3 or 4 people at a time. I think that's something that we can expand our repertoire, because again, so like Metropolis used to do walking tours for free or for like $5. And I mean, I've got to pay a guide, and a guide's got to know something. So it's a bit of a tough market, and we're so spread out, you know, like with Bartholomew, the way he did the city and tore everything down and spread it out. It's really difficult.
Right. The thing about if it's on a phone where somebody can download it and just take it on their own schedule, the person who created the tour can leverage their expertise. You know,
right.
They don't have to just be giving a tour with 5 people and make
right.
a few dollars. They can leverage it. So people will pay for the tour to take it virtually.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, definitely call me. I'm very intrigued. And I think Ricardo, my filmer, is intrigued because I kind of threw him into this. But I'm very, very interested. And Lindsay, have you had Vivian on with the Last Children of Mill Creek Valley?
No, I have not.
She just gave her presentation to the Professional Tour Guide Association. It was our first our second in-person meeting, but she was amazing. And that's what made me bring up that Bartholomew, you know, comment. Mm-hmm. And how everybody was pushed out, and she did such an amazing job.
Yeah,
that's something that.
Yeah,
I was always so proud of living in U City because we were the most, at least back then in the 90s, we were the most desegregated city in the country, and then we also had the most trees per square mile. I don't know if those are true today, but they were then, and I always thought that was interesting and special. Because my California people, when I get a group of Californians, they're like, there's so many trees, or Arizona. And I never think about it. It's like, you have so many trees and it's so green here. So that's kind of funny. Because even look behind me at the park, there's trees in the Gateway Arch, which, by the way, if you don't know, they finally changed it from Jefferson National Expansion Memorial to Gateway Arch National Park. Finally.
Which everybody calls it anyway.
Exactly. And they couldn't find it. People could not find it when they went to nps.gov. So I'm like, finally, but I'm glad that worked out.
But the game sounds really interesting. I think it would be hard to get all the clues.
Well, yeah. And I tell people, like, so we set up social media. So I do a lot of social media for my tour companies. So like I do Facebook Lives and stuff. So we have STL Scavenger on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. So as I'm out running around, because believe it or not, I did 4 tours last week. One of my other guides did a tour. So we've got 2 groups are from out of town. The other were groups here I took on a day trip. So when I'm out, I do videos and pictures. Like this picture was when I was giving a tour. And it was a beautiful, fluffy, cloudy day. We don't get a lot of those in St. Louis. So I took some pictures and posted them. So we're doing a lot of social media. So I'm kind of giving some clues there too, indirect clues. But I'm really grateful that, that it's garnered this much attention. I had no idea what to expect. And it's been such a difficult time being in tourism. And so kind of the only word I can really think to describe is demoralizing. Because no matter what you did, there was nothing to do. I did try to do things like virtual tours, and being an extrovert is hard. It's real hard. So yeah, so this was a good thing. And I'm excited to do this part of it. The writing part, I much prefer the talking part. So
for years I've heard of scavenger hunts in St. Louis that have been I don't know who was sponsoring them, but have you been part of those scavenger hunts, or do you know about them?
There's several companies. Like my friends were looking for one with their kids, so I suggested Let's Roam. The problem was, because they're not here in St. Louis, like they didn't know a plaque was taken down that they gave as a hint. And they were telling me this when I was dropping their books off. They said, and the thing is, it's not really family friendly because it was hard. It was like more like 15 and older, and they have littler kids. So, they're kind of trying to do it from their armchair instead of being here to do it. Because I got my car and drove around, and I walked around streets, and I went back and forth to make sure everything that I was saying hopefully was correct and still there. We've had a couple businesses that have closed. That happened in December, and it was too late to do anything. So, they're there. But the good thing is nothing ever dies on the internet either. So if you look up the clues, you'll probably be able to kind of, figure out what it was.
So are you saying a couple of your clues don't exist anymore because they closed?
The building exists, but the business that's in it does not exist. So you'll still be able to see it visually when you drive by, right? Oh. But what I was kind of giving the clue of is not really there anymore. So I said, the good thing is at least Google has history, right? It'll tell you what it was. And most people will ask in that neighborhood, I think. I think that's probably. Excuse me.
That's a hazard of writing a book like that, because sites could disappear.
Yes, that is a big hazard. And that was the reason I was like excited about using the art, right? Because I'm like, oh, well, that'll stay around. So yeah, so it's kind of a iffy thing. And that's why we wanted to get it out as quickly as we could. I mean, I did tour time, like I turn tours around quick, because like I plan tours sometimes 18 to 24 months ahead. Sometimes I plan a tour like in a month and a half. If it's like to Chicago or something, I think I can get the word out. Or if it's a day, a day trip or something. But in book time, like the fact that we started this with the idea in August, and then, had it out on the street by, I think we got it April 16th. It wasn't supposed to be done till May 1st, is apparently pretty miraculous. But again, I didn't know. I just thought that's the way it was always done.
That is fast.
Do you have, well, first, I guess my first question that had come up was, were there any particular neighborhoods or a neighborhood that you had to end up leaving out during this book?
I I have a couple more. My idea is we're gonna do a second book.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So I had some other neighborhoods that are not in here that I think will make perfect sense to do in the second book.
Mhm.
And remember, we thought this could be a complete failure. You just don't know. It's like a tour, right? So I put a tour together and you put your heart in it. You're like, oh, this is going to be so fabulous. And then nobody buys it.
Mm.
Right. So that was the same thing with this. Like this is brand new territory as far as being in a book. Because Cheryl, exactly what you said, there are apps for scavenger hunts. There was like this company called The Key something, and they would literally leave stuff around for you to find. That was like a treasure chest scavenger hunt, but no one had really written this sort of scavenger hunt type book. It was an idea, and this was bringing it to fruition and making it happen. So, my biggest fear is, what are we going to do if we have all these books and nobody wants them? What are we going to do? So my book launch was hugely successful, apparently also. Again, don't know how to gauge it. So we had the book launch April 28th at Leave on the Hill for Wind Down Wednesday, which is tonight is a Wind Down Wednesday. And I had to get the word out like in a week, but I'd send it out to my email list, my friends. And I mean, I was signing books all night, and Maggie was taking money. Declan was restocking, Maggie was taking the money, and I was signing them. So that was really exciting. I sold 35 books that night. I finally figured out that's pretty amazing. And that's not just, that doesn't include people picking them up. So there's just, it's on trend. I don't know what else to say. It's on trend and it worked. And I'm so glad that I was asked to participate, because I can't take credit for the idea for sure. And then Reedy's going to come out with one down in Tampa Bay, the new one in Chicago. I talked to a gentleman who's out in New Jersey, but he's writing it in Manhattan. So now there's going to be a whole series. So I think that'll be exciting too. And then people can buy them when they travel, to other places. That's what you said about businesses going out. So does it have an expiration? It kind of probably is, but the answers will be out after December 1st. So that's okay. Because that was the hardest thing. How do we do the reveal? That was so hard. So yeah. But I think it's turned out pretty good, and everybody's being responsive to it. And the booksellers' response was really what I hung on to, because I'm a book lover. I am a bibliophile, and I was interested in how they would respond, and they have responded positively. So yeah. I mean, Kelly had it right on the front desk at Subterranean. When I went in to do the Find the Nine video and picture, I was like, oh my God, I'm right here, so that's good.
That's
All
awesome.
right.
What's your next big project? If maybe a second book in the works here for STL Scavenger, do you have any other big book projects? Or are you going to focus more on your tour company?
Well, so there's a Forest Park walking tour book I mentioned, and Reedy is doing a series. So the Hannibal walking tour book will be released next year.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also a labor of love for me, because I love people going to these small towns like I grew up in and visiting and supporting. And then in 23, there will be Herman, will be a walking tour. So those are going to be different because they're maps. So that'll be a map with lots of beautiful pictures, and the books are big. It's a big book, and just like in Forest Park, it's got historical pictures, and then there are current pictures, and then they lead you along the path. So Hannibal, when we went to go get our vaccine, we took pictures there. And Richard Gary, who is Mark Twain and owns Planners Theater, he was just on an Indianapolis TV show with me. I was doing St. Louis, he was doing Hannibal. The weather guy was doing all of Missouri. So Pat and Richard are going to be really important in that too. So I'm excited about the walking tour books, because I walk a lot. I met a tour guide, one of my tour directors in Hawaii, walk the Hawaii Marathon, the Honolulu Marathon. And I'm like, can you do that? She goes, yeah, there's always walkers. And I said, well, what was the worst thing that happened? She goes, mile 5, my shoes started hurting. And she's like, here, I've been building up. I've been doing 10 miles. I've been doing 15 miles. I've been 20, she was really working up, and they weren't even new shoes. She'd broken them in. But so I started doing walking, like trying to do 5 miles, 7 miles, and really, really walking a lot. And so I enjoy that. And I think other people during the pandemic, I think this is going to make that tour. And I think that Forest Park walking tour book has probably gotten a lot of momentum because people are walking. And I live 1.5 miles from the park, and it is full of people. So I walk in my little parks. Like I go over to Sublette Park and do the hills, and I go to Clifton Park, which is amazing. And I go to Lafayette, I kind of work it around. Like I like Heman Park. So yeah, Ruth Park has a golf course. So yeah, I think walking is going to be hot. I think you're on the right track, Cheryl.
Well, thank you so much, Dia. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing all this, like your process, all of your fun stories. The swans, I think, is just perfect.
Sometimes it works.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight. And thanks again to Dia. And I have put into the comments in the chat where you might be able to find a signed copy of STL Scavenger. And I hope you all have a great night.
And I'm going to add a phone number.
Oh, okay.
People, so that if you don't want to go online, you can just call us and Maggie will hook you up. Maggie or I will. And Cheryl, write that down. You'll have it too. But we are old school. We accept checks in the mail. It's crazy, in an envelope with a stamp. So yeah, I've learned that a lot of kids don't know how to write a check. I've never had to, so yeah. It's kind of funny, but yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, feel free to phone.
Yes.
Lindsay, thanks so much. Like, we planned this months ago, because remember, we didn't think the book was going to be out till May 1st. So yeah.
Glad it worked out. Well, many wishes for your continued success there, Dia. All right. Well, have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.